Okay, so we're almost towards the end. So we have done two bounces to show the anticipation. Okay, like the ball is now gaining enough energy to finally jump towards its goal. Okay, so you can see we don't have enough frames here, so we need to expand. Right now we are logged at 201. So I want to add extra frames here. So I'll just go here in this first block and I'll add around 260. So now you can see we got 60 frames more. Let's add 300 actually. So now basically we have around uh, 130 or 120 frames extra. So now we have plenty of space to work with. And if we are not going to use that many frames, we can then, of course, lessen this number. But for now, this is a good workspace to continue. Okay. Right now, you can see if I scrub through the timeline, you can see uh, the frames here appear so thin because we have increased the number of frames. So obviously, like you can see, these look really thin. I want them to appear a little bit thicker so that when I hit like S, like whenever I'm selecting an object and I hit S, I can actually uh, see it properly and move it properly because right now this is too thin. So I want a wider space. That's easy to do. I can just reduce the number of initial frames. Here we have already done it, right? We don't want this initial part to be constantly visible. I want everything to be visible from this frame where the jump starts. So basically, I want to see everything from 118. So I'll go here in this block and I'll type 118. So now you can see only this much is visible to us. That doesn't mean that the other animation is gone. It's still there. It's just not visible. Okay. So we have basically clamped the frames. So we are just zooming in and working on this particular area. So first jump and second jump, and then I want to do uh, the final jump. Now there's one more thing. You can see the first jump happens, and there's a very big pause that I've given here. I feel like that the pause is actually very, very long. I want to decrease that. Okay, like the first jump is good, but then after that, I've given around, more than 10 frames of pause, and I feel like it's a little too long. So I want to again change it. Very easy to do. I just have to select all the controllers. Okay, and this was the last frame. This is our pause, right? You can see we have the same value at 146 and same value at 158. All we have to do is we just have to select all the keys from 158 and just shift them backwards slightly. So now the jump happens in a lesser time. The second jump basically is happening a lesser time. Okay. Okay. It would be better if you add few frames of a pause. If you do it continuously, it will be fine, but it will not look that impactful. So just try to give at least 2 or 3 frames of pause. It shouldn't look too continuous. Now I will have to see what you're doing. You'll have to show me how it is looking. So if it doesn't look right, then you can add a few frames in between. Okay? It's easy to do. We can always just shift the keyframes. That's never an issue. Okay? So just show me what you're doing and then I'll let you know. Okay? All right. Again, Shiv, this is an off-topic thing. Anyway, I don't use Marvelous Designer because I don't make the clothing objects in that. I just do it through simple modeling and then I sculpt them with ZBrush. I don't use Marvelous Designer. Okay. All right. So let's continue. So this was our second jump, and now we want to do the lift off, right? Now see what is happening here. It stretched, it squashed, and then I just made it bounce back to its original shape. Now here things will actually differ a little bit. Now, basically what we want to do here is the ball will go from here till here, right? So before that happens, we want to give just a 2 or 3 frames of pause. So not even 3, just like 2 frames, and you'll see how I'll do it. So you can see when the ball is on the ground, that is again considered as a pause itself. Okay, so it's on the ground, and I want to stretch it out. So instead of it being bounced back to its original shape, I will actually stretch it out. Why? Because this will be a continuous bounce. Right after the squash and stretch ends, like basically it is stretching out because right after this, I will be moving the ball. Okay, right now I haven't moved it, but I will be moving it. Okay, so I'm just stretching it out right now. And yeah, maybe it might be confusing to some of you, so I think I should actually let it be back to its shape. Let's first make the ball move and then we will do the squash and stretch. So it will be easier for everyone to understand. Okay. All right. So we have the frame at 179. I'll go forward around 10 frames. Sorry, not around 10. I'm actually going around 16 frames. Okay. And if it seems lesser or more, we can then obviously arrange it. That's never an issue. Okay. The point is that our last frame at the ground is supposed to be at 179. So at 195, I want to move it towards the basketball hoop. So I will just move it up and move it forward. Okay. I need to make sure that it hits the board and just it should hit a little bit sideways. Okay. It's going like this. And I want it to be a little bit higher. Why higher? Because I will make it fall down to the hoop. Actually, like right now, it is hitting the board. Okay. So after it hits the board, it will fall down here, do a half roll and get down. Okay. That's my intention. So that's why I want to keep it higher like this. Okay. You can see I pressed undo and then I redid everything. See, I'm pressing undo here and I can redo it as well. This was my final position, right? So I pressed undo by pressing Control plus Z twice. Now, let's say I want to go back to the original position that I had created. So to redo a step, you can press Control plus Y and you will be back. You can see the shortcut is here as well. Undo and redo. Undo is for Control plus Z and redo is for Control plus Y. Okay. All right. So if I hit play right now, you will see that will look horrible, right? Obviously, the ball will not go like this unless it has wings or something like that, so it can move in this manner. So this is obviously not a natural movement, right? And the thing is, telling the timing is also a little bit difficult because the movement is so bad, right? So it's difficult to tell whether the timing is right or not. So in order to verify whether the timing is good or not, we need to correct the spacing. So right now you can see this is horrible, right? It's going in a straight line. There's no arc. A ball will obviously bounce in a arc. It will not go straight like this. Plus, the speed is very bad. Like, of course, it will be faster, slower, and all of those things will happen, right? So we need to correct all of that. Let's go to the graph editor. Okay. Now this will be slightly different. Let me turn on uh, editable motion trail. Now, this is something which is really helpful. You can see I have the controller selected. Okay. If I go to visualize and I click on editable motion trail, you can see we have the full movement. Let me show you right from the beginning as well. If we go back and make all the frames visible, and if I turn on motion trail, you can see it is basically showing the position of the ball. See, if I zoom in here, look at this. We have all these numbers. So basically, it is showing that the ball is going backward and forward and so on. Okay, so all these movements are happening, and basically, these little points show us how the ball is traveling. There is no curvature here, that's why it is going straight like this. Obviously, this is not something we want. We want it to go in a curvature, right? So, yes, this is a path which shows how the ball is moving. Okay, so we want to correct that. So, first, we start with translate Y. Okay, let me hide the motion trail in this so that we can focus on just the ball. Now I'll go to the graph editor, go to translate Y, select the last two keys which we want to edit. Second. Yeah, so you can see these are the last two keys, right? I'm selecting those in the graph editor and I'll press F to zoom in. So now we have a better view and I will break the tangents. See, usually when we do a ball bounce, it is faster at the ground, right? And then slower at the top. In this scenario, what is happening? The ball is traveling a larger distance. Okay, so it will reach its highest point before hitting the basketball hoop. So it will not be slow when it reaches here. Let me show you if I make it slow, how bad it will look. It will look very unnatural. So let's do it like a traditional bounce. So obviously, in the beginning, the speed will be fast, and towards the end, it will be slow, right? This is how we usually do it. Now, if I hit play and show you this, see, it is becoming slower when it hits the hoop. That is something that doesn't happen. When it is going to hit the hoop, it should be at a good amount of speed. Right now, what is happening? It is actually slowing down. So this is not right. That's why I said that when we throw a ball to a longer distance, it reaches its highest point before hitting the like this hoop, okay? Because this is a very large distance. So the ball will reach its highest point a little bit earlier. Therefore, what will happen while it hits the hoop, it will be at a faster speed. Because reaching highest point means it will already be slow at some point and then it will gain the speed again. Okay. So that is something which needs to be there. And it will not slow down that much because you can imagine it is getting thrown here. Like obviously the ball is basically bouncing on its own, but you can imagine that a person is basically throwing the ball. So person is throwing with a force, right? So it will not slow down like a traditional ball bounce, like the ones that we did here. It will be different. So as I said, it should reach its highest point few frames before hitting the hoop. So how do we do that? There are two ways of doing this. Either you go here and add another key, or what you can do is like, let's say if I want to add a key, then what will I do? I will move the ball higher to show that it is reaching its highest point. And now you can see because I flattened the curve here, the shape of the curve got disrupted. And you can see that changes our animation and makes it look bad, but that's okay. We can correct it like this. So you can see the ball reaches its highest point at 192 and then it gains its speed back again. So we get something like this. But an easier way of getting this result is just by creating that same curve with the help of the tangents. So you can see I'm getting the same thing. I am putting this point, this particular arc higher than this base point, right? As I said, it should reach its highest point earlier than hitting the hoop. So that's exactly what I'm doing. Okay. So you can see it reached its highest point. So basically we have covered half of the curve. If you just look at this curve, look at the part which is inside the square which I have made. You can see this is exactly what we have made here. Okay. Is this clear? Is everyone able to understand the point of making it higher at this point? See, the curve being higher basically means the translate y value is high. Okay? Okay, all right, great. So it's clear. So we have adjusted translate y, but there's another thing which is into play. The ball is actually moving forward, right? It is actually moving in translate x. Now, if we don't change that, what we get is a slow in and slow out. So the ball is moving slowly over here, then it gains speed. Then at the hitting point, it again slows down, which results in a weird motion. It needs to be in a constant motion. So Dakar, you can add a key, as I showed. You can definitely add a key. But I want everyone to be comfortable and to also understand that we can do the same thing with the curves. Okay? We don't have to rely on keys for simple movements like these. Because for movements like these, where lots of arcs are required, when we add manual keys, we get jerks. Okay, so it becomes another headache to smooth it out. It's much more easier when you control it with the graph itself so that you get smoother results. Okay. That's the whole point. So as I was saying, you can see what is happening. The ball's forward speed is a bit slower because of the shape of the curve, right? This is the natural shape that we get in a normal animation. So it is slowing in, then the constant speed is reached, and then it slows out again. So again, I don't want it to slow out towards the end. See, initial forward translation can be slow because it is going forward from a certain point. So it can be slower when it is exiting the main point. Okay. But when it is about to hit this board, it should be in a constant speed. It should not slow down like this. So what I'll do here is I will select this and I will break the tangent and I will make it come down like this so that it can be constant. And if I hit play, you can see this, it is not slowing down towards the end. It is maintaining the speed. Okay. You can see I have hit play in the view in the options here for the playing options. And now if I just click wherever I want to click, I can see the animation getting played from that point. I'm explaining this because some people get confused. Like, how am I making this happen? So it's just nothing. I have just hit play. I haven't stopped the time slider and I'm just clicking wherever I want to see the animation from. Okay. So I hope that's not confusing. Okay. And now, like, if you want the speed to be a little bit faster, like you can see it's a little too slow. It should be slightly faster. So what I'll do is I'll make this slightly steep. I'm not going to make it too steep. Otherwise, it will become completely constant from the starting point. See, it is starting to move forward here because before that it was just bouncing up and down, right? Now it is starting to move forward. So of course there will be a slight slowdown in initially. Okay, it will not get into constant speed at once. But this is a little too slow for what I want. So what I'll do is I will make it slightly steeper. Not too much, just slightly. If I make it too steep, then it will be very, very high in speed. But I'm just making it slightly steep. And now if I hit play, the speed is like this. Okay. So it is hitting the ball there. I mean, the ball is basically hitting the board towards the end. So if you feel like the speed is still slow when it is hitting, you can make it even more steep. That will increase the spacing, right? See what was the case before? The ball was still closer to the basketball hoop right before hitting it. I want it to be even faster. So what I'll do, I'll obviously make it steeper. That way, the ball will be away from the board. That means at 194, it's like at a very good distance. And then at 195, it hits. So you can see I just increased the spacing of the ball. And therefore, it looks like the speed is actually fast. Okay, so we've got this. So I feel like the overall the speed of this, like of course the spacing and everything is fine, but overall the speed is a little too slow for my liking. So what I'll do here is the key that I have at 195, first of all, uh, I won't be pressing S here. Why? Because we have just moved the ball. We haven't added any rotation. So if I press S here, then again it will be logged. So I won't be doing that. Okay. And see the motion trail. See the how the shape changed. It is showing the path of the ball. Okay. So it's really helpful in many areas. All right. So what I'll do is I will take the keyframe and I will move it closer. So I have increased uh, the timing. I mean, it is faster now. Okay. Now we can make it even faster if you want, but for now I'll keep it as it is. Now another thing is there's no rotation here. So let's add the rotation and I will remove the motion trail as it is a little bit distracting. So you can see the ball is covering a large amount of different distance. Okay, so there will be at least two, three rounds of the rotation. So you can see I've added that and I will make sure to keep it straight at this point. Why? Because If you want, you can definitely add a squash and stretch here as well. Yes, you can delete the motion trail. You can go to the outliner and hit delete. You can see when you create a motion trail, it gets created, a node gets created. So if you hit delete, it will be gone. I don't want to delete it, that's why I hid it here. Okay. All right. So you can see it is getting hit here, and I have made sure to land it like this so that if I want to squash and stretch, I can do so easily. Okay. So we'll come to that. Before we do it, let's come down here at the base. So you can see here it's stretched and squashed. Now, when it is going back up, I want to stretch it out again. Okay. Because obviously it's stretched, it's squashed, it should stretch out again, right? So I just want to do it for one frame at 180. At 181, I will press S, and at 180, I will stretch it out. So you can see the squash and stretch, okay, and it is bouncing back, okay, and then it is hitting the board at a frame number 192. And like if you want to add a squash and stretch here, you can do so. And you don't have to do extreme squash and stretch. You can add a little bit of a dampening kind of effect. So very little squash and stretch you can add. Let me show you. So this is the point where the ball hit. So this is the point where it should be squashed, right? Right before that, if you want to add a little bit of a stretch, you can do so as well. But for now, let's make it squash first. So at frame number 191, I'll just press S to lock everything. And at 192, I will squash it. So you can see I slightly squash it and then I will stretch it back out. Now you don't have to like stretch it out a lot. You can just make it bounce back to its original shape. So what is happening? Look at this. We can show the impact and then it bounces back. And right before it, if you want to show stretch, you can do so. So the point of impact is 192. So you want to show the stretch right before it, which will be 191. And at 190, it should remain round, right? So I'll press S there and then I'll press S at the impact frame. And in between, we can stretch it out. So you can see it is stretched, it is squashed, and then it bounces back. So you can see that like a sticky kind of effect is visible. Okay. I didn't want to add too much of squash and stretch here. Just a little stickiness I wanted to show. So you can see that is visible. Okay. Now, after this, we want to make the ball fall down. Let's also change the camera angle because like what I want to do here is we have a third person perspective, right? We're looking at it as an audience. We'll still keep doing that, but our angle will change. So let's grab hold of the camera and you can see it is already unlocked. I probably didn't lock it yesterday, so that's fine. So we need a stopping key before we change the view. Like if I just go ahead and change it, you can see it is getting animated, right? I don't want that. I want to keep it stable. And later on, we will add the handheld effect in this camera angle. For now, I just want to keep it stable. So what I'll do here is I will also be showing the camera angle change before the impact. Okay, so we'll actually be zoomed in. So at frame number 90, I want to change this frame angle. So what I'll do here is I will press S in the camera. So there's no movement from 81 to 190. Okay, and right after that, I will change the angle. So I'm just doing it directly from here. So like from this angle, I'm going to keep it. So basically, we're looking at it from the top. Okay. One second. All right. So you can see this was our normal view, and now we are closer to this. So we actually see the ball get hit after changing the view. I think it should be a little bit more faster because the ball is getting hit right after the change. So it should be a little bit earlier. So I'm shifting the two keyframes. Uh, okay, it should be around here where the ball is actually in the scene. So you can see the ball gets in the scene at frame number 189. So that's where I shifted it. Let me undo this and show it to you again so it's not confusing. See, what I did here was from 80 to 189, I put a stopping key, and at 190, I changed the angle. Now, the problem in this is that at 191, and like there is just two frames where the ball is getting hit. So it is very fast, considering that we're also changing the camera angle. Okay, so I don't want it to be so fast. So what I'll do here is I will actually uh, make the camera angle change a little bit earlier. So for that, what we do, we slide the keyframes. So I'll take these and I will shift it once and then I'll see. So now you can see halfway the ball is visible. So now we get a little bit more time. So if I hit play, you can actually see this happen. Okay, like this. Okay, is this clear? Okay. Shiv, I don't understand what you're talking about. Nothing about this is realistic. What we're doing here, it's all fantasy. We're just trying to maintain its physical volume. Of course, basketball doesn't squashes and stretches like this, right? This is all fantasy thing that we're doing. It doesn't really happen in reality. Basketball is like very hard. It doesn't squashes and stretches like this. It will like it definitely does squash and stretch at a very uh like at a level where we cannot even see it with naked eyes. Like you have to have a slow motion view of the full thing, then maybe you'll see very slight amount of squash and stretch. Yeah, negligible rate. It happens with a very negligible rate. But here, obviously, we're exaggerating it. Okay. So real life physics doesn't apply to this anyway. We're just trying to keep its physical value as close as possible. I mean, of course, it doesn't move like this. We're just exaggerating things. Okay. All right. So now that we've entered the second angle, I'm going to press S over here to lock it. Okay. It is, I mean, this frame is properly noted down, and I'll go to the camera here and lock it so it doesn't change. Okay. So now you can see the transition is actually good. We see the hit happen in the next angle. Okay. And now we can maintain the continuity of the shot. Let's get to the controller. So you can see it hits here and then we make a slight squash and stretch happen. So I'm going to give it one frame here, just one frame pause. See, it hits at 192. I'm going to add another frame where I'll press S. So you can see we have two frames side by side. So the ball stays there for two frames, okay, till it bounces back to its original shape. And after that, I'll make it fall down. So you can see I'm just going forward around three or four frames and I will make the ball fall down at the hoop. So you can see just landing it like this. So it basically falls down in this way. So if I hit play, you can see this is happening. It is falling down. Now this looks, again, it looks a little bit unnatural because it's just translating. Don't worry, we will add rotation as well in this. For now, I'm not going to worry about the rotation. I will first correct the positioning with translation itself, and then we will add the rotation. Okay. So right now you can see it just falls down like this. So I think the timing is fine. It's not too slow, not too fast. So this is okay. And now what I'll do is I'll move forward a few frames. We want the ball to basically rotate in the hoop. I'm not going to do a full rotation. I'll just do a halfway rotation, like I'll bring the ball till this point, and then we will make it slide off and fall down. Now it sounds very complex, but it isn't. So you can just follow what I'm doing and it will be very clear, okay, while you're doing it. So again, I'm going to move forward a few frames. Okay, so maybe 5 or 6 frames, and I will move the ball like this. Now you can see I'm actually selecting this little square. Why am I doing that? See, when you grab hold of these squares, they actually lock in the value of those particular axes. So if you look at this side, you can see at the base we have the Z axis and the X axis, right? So if you hit the square in between, when you move the ball, you can see, look at the channel box, what happens here. I'm moving it with this, and you can see only translate X and Z are changing. There's no change in translate Y, right? Whereas if I try to move it like this, I can accidentally also change translate Y. I don't want it to change. I just want to change the Z and the X axis because see, this point is further than this. So obviously I want to translate it in X axis and the Z axis. So instead of doing it singularly like this, I do it just by grasping this little square, which just constrains the movement to X and Z. Same thing is there for all the other axes. Like you can see this one, we have Y axis here and X axis here. So if you hit the square in between and if you try to move it, you will see only change will happen in X and Y. There's no change happening in the Z axis. So this is very helpful in such scenarios. Okay. So anyway, I will move the ball forward like this. So if I hit play, you can see this is a little too fast and it also seems like it is kind of jumping, right? This is way too fast. It shouldn't be so fast. So why is it looking fast? Because the ball is covering a large amount of difference or distance in a very short span. So it looks like it is kind of jumping. I don't want that to happen. I want it to be slower than this. So what I'll do here is I will take this last keyframe which I created here. Okay, and I will shift it forward. That way, what will happen? We will end up increasing the number of frames in between. That will in turn increase the time. So it will slow the ball down. Okay, so if I hit play now, you can see it is much more slower. But still, it is kind of traveling in a like straight direction. You can see it more clearly if you turn on the motion trail. Look at this. It is going from this point to this point in a straight line. That is something we don't want, right? But that's not a problem right now. We will adjust it by adding a breakdown pose. Okay. A breakdown pose is basically a pose in between two extremes. So we have an extreme here where the ball is like where the ball hits the hoop, and the second one where the ball travels forward. But since it is going in a straight line, it's not what we want. So what we do here is we add basically we just add a little bit of a curvature. And how do we do that? We obviously move it like this. See, when I do that, I get a curvature. So now it looks like the ball is actually using the hoop to travel forward. Okay. And there's no rotation here, so it will still look a little bit unnatural, but at least it is traveling in the correct path. Okay. It is following the curvature of the hoop. So you can see that looks much better. Okay, compared to before. Now, at this point, we can actually go ahead and add a little bit of rotation. So let's start from here. I will hide the motion trail. So you can see when the ball is coming down, it should rotate, right? It's falling down, it should rotate forward like this. So I am rotating it. It hits and falls down and it rotates forward. A little side as well. Okay, so you can see it is sliding and rotating like this. Now we'll move forward in this frame that we created at 201. Again, it should keep on rotating, right? And it should also follow the curvature. So first of all, I'll rotate it in the Z axis so we can show forward rotation. And then since the hoop is in a circle, We need the ball to follow that particular path. So we also need to rotate it in rotate Y. So you will see it is following the path better in this way. Now same thing I'll do over here, rotate it in the Z axis and in the Y axis. So you can see the ball is actually following the curvature, right? This is what happens like if a car is traveling on a circular path, it rotates its body, right? So that's what we're doing. I'm doing a forward rotation and I'm also doing a rotation in rotate Y so that it can follow the path properly. So you can see it kind of looks like this, a little fast, but not bad. Okay. So it does a rotation like this when it falls. And at 201, I think I should have more of a forward rotation. It's a little lesser compared to what I want. So I will rotate it down more. So now you can see there's more amount of rotation downward. Okay. So like this. And then I will increase it here in the next frame as well. So you can see it is increasing gradually like this. Okay. Is this clear? Any confusion? Okay. All right. So we will just do a little bit and like I'm not going to rotate it further than this, move further than this. We will make it slide down. Okay. So let's see. Okay. We can still adjust the speed here. I feel like the speed here between 198 and 201 is a little too fast. So what I'll do here is I'll add another frame in between. So I will select the last two keyframes and I'll move it forward. So now we have more time in between. Okay. Yes, Sudhakar, you can increase the amount of rotation so it will not look like it is sliding. Okay. So you can definitely go ahead and add more of a rotation. Translation is happening. If you increase the amount of rotation, it will look like the ball is actually properly going forward. Okay. I'm trying to keep it as less complicated as possible because we're doing quite a lot here. So you can definitely control it. Okay. So you can see after increasing the rotation, it's much better. It looks like the ball is actually properly rotating. Okay. And definitely you can go ahead and adjust the positions as well. If you look down like this, you will be able to see whether the ball is following the correct path or not. And you can see it is following the correct path. Okay. Here, I think I have shifted it a little too much. So I'm going to shift it back. And now you can see it's moving properly. Okay. This is the best way of knowing whether this is actually going correctly or not. If you just look at it from the downside. Okay. All right. So now that we're done with this, I will select everything and I'll key it. We're not doing any squash and stretch here to keep it simple. Uh, and now what we want to do here is we want it to slide off. One thing is there. Okay, there's slight intersection here with our hoop. So I'm going to slightly move it. That's it. So it won't intersect. That's it. So now there's no intersection. All right. So now after this, I want it to slide off and fall down. Okay. So I'll move forward a few frames. Don't go ahead too many frames, just around 3 or 4 frames first. And then you move it outside and a little bit forward as well and a little bit downward. So you can see, we can show that it is falling down. Now we have to be very careful. So a little adjustments will be required. So you just have to go a little back and forth with this till you get it right. We want to show that it is sliding. And right now I'm only translating it. See, if you're showing it sliding, we obviously have to rotate it as well. Okay, so we'll add the rotation, but first we need to get this part right. So basically it should just slide off from here. And when it does, it will rotate in the proper direction. That means if it's falling down like it is sliding in this direction, then the rotation will also happen in this direction. So you can see, once I added the rotation, it looks so natural. If I undo this, it looks like it is sliding. But as soon as I add the rotation, it looks like the ball is actually rotating downwards. Okay, so you can see it goes like this. Now you can adjust the timing. So if you feel like this is the frame that you added, maybe it's fast, maybe it's slow, I think we can slow it down a little bit. So that's what I'll do. I will select all the keyframes, press S to key everything, and I will shift it by one frame. And if I play it now, you can see this is a little bit slower. So it's better for me. Okay. So you can see how nicely it is rotating downwards. Now we've got to continue this. So I'll move forward. Like basically, first thing that I'll do here is I'll make it fall down completely. So I'll go forward, good amount of frame, around 10 frames, and I will just translate it down all the way till it's not visible anymore. So kind of like this. What you can also do is instead of doing it halfway, since our shots will be, staying connected, what you can do instead is you can go ahead to around 15 frames and drop it completely on the ground. So I'll go to translate Y and zero it out. So you can see it falls down here. Okay, I feel like 15 frames are too much, so I'll reduce the number of frames. So I think now the timing is fine. So it is falling down like this. Okay, and let's add rotation. Obviously, it will rotate. And I will make sure that when it falls straight. So it's rotating and then it just falls straight like this. Now, if you want to add more rotation, you can. I'm adding less rotation only. And we can go ahead and just quickly correct the translate Y. I'll go to the last two keyframes. Okay, break the tangents. Of course, since it is coming from rest, it will be slower at the top and obviously faster near the ground. Okay, just like a normal ball. And I want it to be slower at the top, so I'll flatten it a bit more. So it is slow and then it falls down fast. Okay, okay, I feel like it is too slow. It's a little too slow here. I want it to be faster than this. Let's make it a bit more steep. So now you can see it is fast. It's not that slow. Okay. So now you must be thinking, why have I directly taken it down? It's not visible in this particular camera angle. But as I said, we will be changing the camera view. Okay. Like the ball exits at this frame. So this will be my last frame, 217. We can see the ball a little bit here. So this will be my last camera angle. I'll unlock the camera and I'll press S here. So you can see from frame number 189 to frame number 217, it remains constant. And right after that at 218, I will change the angle. So I'll zoom in here. So now you can see from this angle, we move into this angle. So you can show the ball a little bit if you want. So there's a connection. Whenever trail shots are created, if the character is exiting the camera angle from one particular shot, the continuation is done. So you can see I've shown the ball here a little bit. So I'll continue to show the ball here in the second angle or the second shot as well. Okay. So the continuity is maintained. All right. And I will press S. I have the camera selected. I logged everything. The keys are noted. I log the camera. And if I hit play, you can see the ball falls down So I think it's a little fast when it's coming down. It looks a little fast, maybe. Okay, no, it's fine actually. Uh, if you consider this as a heavy ball, it will just stop like this, right? But this is a light ball. We'll add squash and stretch, and we won't stop the movement here. The ball will exit the scene because when it did all these big jumps, it gained so much of energy that even after doing the final landing, it will continue to move. See, this is what happens when you do a really high jump, you prepare yourself and you do the jump, you land, you don't land instantly. Sometimes you continue moving forward, right? If you see lots of see gymnastics, just go to YouTube and see gymnasts doing all types of, uh, you know, athletic stuff. You will see that they will not just completely stop. They try their level best to completely stop, but many times when their body is very energetic, it continues to move. So that's something that I want to show here. So you can see the ball lands like this. One problem which is making it look a little bit weird at the landing is that rotation is straight. See, it is falling down with absolutely very, very less rotation, right? So we need to make sure that there is some amount of rotation when it is falling down. Now, what you can do is you can definitely go ahead and increase the rotation, but you can see this height is not so much, right? So what I'll do here is I'll go to the graph editor. I'll try and increase the speed of rotation over here. So we need to first see which angle is rotating the most. So you can see rotate X is the one which is rotating the most. Okay, this is how it is going down in this particular angle. So that's what I'll do. I'll just check out the rotate X and you can see the last two keyframes. Okay, so I'll select last two keyframes and now we have a zoomed in view of it. So you can see why it looks like there's no rotation happening towards the end because obviously the curve is flat over here. What I'll do here is I'll break the tangent and I will make it steep. So you can see the rotation is increased, but it's still less actually. I want more amount of rotation. Okay. So what I'll do here is I will go ahead and increase the rotation. Okay, because I'm not getting what I want just by adjusting the curves. So you can see how I tried different methods, but I didn't reach the result that I wanted. So what I had to do instead finally is add more rotation. So now you can see more rotation is visible, okay, at the time of landing. And obviously, because I've changed uh, this particular position, the last position, the curve is kind of back to its original state. I want it to be steep again. So you can see we actually get to see the continuous rotation. Okay. So we see big amount of rotation happen. All right. So now that is done. I will press, select everyone and I'll press S to lock everything. And let's add squash and stretch. But even before that, we want to make sure that it continues to move. Right now, the ball has stopped. I want it to continue to move. So basically, it will continue bouncing forward. I will turn on motion trail and I'll go forward a few frames. I'll move it up and I'll move it forward and not going to obviously, if I just move the ball like this, obviously it will hit the pole. We don't want that to happen. So the ball will actually go in this direction. Okay. So it exits the scene. It bounces and exits the scene. Now you can see, obviously this looks very slow and we haven't adjusted the spacing yet. First of all, I will decrease the timing. I mean, the keyframe, I'm just making it happen a little bit earlier. So it's faster. And now we'll adjust the spacing of it. So we'll go to the graph editor and we'll go to translate Y and I'm selecting the last two keyframes. Again, we'll break the tangents. Now this is again similar to what we've been doing. So initially, again, we want the speed to be fast. And towards the end, if you want, you can definitely keep it like this. So basically it slows down as it exits. Okay. like that. I feel like the height is too less, so I will increase its height. Okay, so I just increased the height, and you can go ahead in different axes and make sure to add adjustments there towards the end. So the speed is faster in the forward axes. Okay. Now, because it was moving sideways, there was movement happening in both X and Z. That's why I'm changing both the axes. So you can see it exits out. Now you don't have to completely move it out of the scene. You can still actually keep the ball in the scene and add a cut here. Okay. It doesn't necessarily have to exit out. You can still keep it in the scene like this. That's not a problem. Okay. And if you want it to exit the scene, that is also fine. But the problem with that is then we again cover a large amount of distance, right? So then we have to do the same adjustments. The ball should actually reach its highest point before ending its movement here. So if I go to translate y, I'll have to do the same thing that we did over here. Okay, we'll have to do the same thing here. So let's go ahead and do that. I will raise it higher at one point. Okay, so you can see in between it reaches its high point and then it exits out. Okay, and we haven't added squash and stretch. So let's add that as well quickly. I'm going to hide the motion trail. So let's start with the point of impact. We want it to be squashed here. But right before that, I don't want anything. So I'll hit a key. And at frame number 222, I will squash it. At frame number 223, I'll just zero it out. So we have the squash. Now let's do the stretch. So at the point of impact, we already have a key. Here we want to stretch it out, but a frame before that we want it to stay round. So I'm going to press S to add a key at 221. I want to stretch it out. Now you can see we're in world axis. So if I stretch it out like this, it goes down. I want it to follow its position, like its angle. So I'll go to object mode and that way I can stretch it out like this. So it stretches out, but you can see that doesn't look right, right? Because if the stretch is happening, it's happening at the lower base and it should not be tilted like this. So instead, I will just slightly move it so, so that it is a little bit straighter. So you can see it is stretching out and then it is squashing. And if the top bothers you, you can actually edit the top as well for the same thing. Okay. Because whenever we add the stretch, we do so when the ball is straight. In this case, it is rotating a lot. So at this particular angle, it's tilted, right? I have corrected the base to make it more straighter, but still at the top, you can see the tilt is there. If you don't want the tilt, you can add the correction to it. But if you want to do that, you have to go one frame earlier and make sure that it is properly there in this in that position, like the key should be there. Why? Because if I move it like this, you will see the ball will remain stretched out, right? So if I want to make a change here, I will have to put a key right before that, and at 221 I will move it like this. So you can see the ball actually stretches straight, squashes, and then we can add the squash and stretch again. So basically stretched out, and I want to, sorry, here it is squashed and I want to stretch it out again. I'll use the lower controller, and if I directly stretch it, I'll have to go back at 224 and zero everything out. So that's why what I usually do is I add an extra key first to make sure it is round in the later frames. And the frame where I need it to be stretched, I stretch it out. And you can see when I'm stretching out, I'm also deciding to tilt it a little bit. Why is that? Because uh, the stretch happens in the shape of the arc. The ball is obviously going in an arc, right? So if I keep the stretch straight, you can see it looks unnatural. right? Because this was the point of impact. The stretch is happening here, and the ball is actually going in an arc. So that doesn't make sense. So what I do here is when I stretch it out, I make sure to translate it towards the point of impact. This was where the point of impact was happening. So I just translated it there. So there's better connection now. Okay. And then it is round and then it goes out. Okay, I feel like it is a little too fast now. The ball exiting the scene. So I'll take the mid controller and I'll add few more frames. And now if we play this, this is better. Okay, so you can see simple effect. All right. So now it is completed. Okay. Um, okay, what are you saying? Yes, you can lock rotation, but it's unnecessary to do that because then like if you try to copy and paste the frames, you will get translation also. So you'll have to copy the rotation value, and rotation is happening in all the axes. So you'll have to copy all the values and then paste it. Instead, you can just use the squash and stretch controller and just you know control where it is going. We did a similar thing for the football bounce when we converted it to squash and stretch. So in some areas I actually translated the squash and stretch controllers to get it to follow the arc. Okay, so that's why I did it. Now, usually it wouldn't have caused any problem, but because I decided to increase the amount of rotation, we got a very weird angle right before the squash. So, of course, if I let it be, then the angle is very bad like this. We don't want that. That's why I just added a bunch of keys to control it. Okay. Okay. So the animation gets over at frame number 233. So let's type 233 here. And this is our final result. We haven't done full camera animation yet. We will be doing camera animation from here as well. Okay. So this is the final result. So tomorrow I will show everyone how to animate the handheld effect again for this scene. And for the jump, the last jump here, we will actually wiggle the camera a little bit. Okay. So it will wiggle and then it will exit out. So we will do that and then we will render the scene as well. Okay. So now rendering is an extra thing. It's not part of our demo class. So I'm just teaching that so that, you all can render your animations and post it. Okay. So I will be using V-Ray for rendering. Okay. So if you need V-Ray render engine, you can text me. I will send it to you. Okay. Oh, oh yes, yes, yes. I forgot to add rotation here. Thank you for reminding me. I actually forgot to add rotation in this last frame. Let's do that. So we can just add rotation and that's it. That's done. Okay. So now there's rotation happening as well. Make sure to add rotation here, guys. I just forgot to do that just to show the full animation. Yes, so Humvire is better than Arnold in most of the cases. Uh, See, Arnold is good when you want to do skin rendering. Okay, you want subsurface scattering. So it gives more realistic results, but the render time is so much. But it's okay when hyper realism is required. But for normal renders, we shouldn't use Arnold because it is so slow. You can render in V-Ray faster than that. So I prefer V-Ray and the results are same only. You should just know how to control the shaders and the light. Even if you use GPU OpenRaj, V-Ray is faster compared to Arnold. So and for V-Ray to render faster, we don't even have to turn on GPU. For the normal rendering itself is fast enough. So I prefer that. If you prefer Arnold, you can do it, not a problem. But yeah, the Arnold is, sorry, V-Ray is very, very fast. Okay. All right. Siddharth, I was just mentioning how they are different. They're both render engines. I just mentioned why they're different. Okay. No, Arnold lights will, I don't think they will render with V-Ray. Why do you want to use Arnold lights? If you're rendering with V-Ray, you should use V-Ray lights. No. Why do you even want to use the Arnold lights? Like, there's no reason for it. No, so for V-Ray also we have Sky Dome light. We have the Sky Dome light. This is it. Why do you think that Sky Dome light only exists in Arnold? It exists in all the render engines. These are basic lights. Okay. I have V-Ray 5. I am not using V-Ray 6, but even V-Ray 5 is better than Arnold for me. Haven't used V-Ray 6 yet. Uh, okay, guys, let's keep it till here. Tomorrow I'll show everyone how to render while adding some camera movements. And then after that, we'll start with the squirrel. So even though the demo classes are supposed to be for 12 days, it will run a little bit longer than that, maybe 15 days. Okay. So yeah. All right. Uh, any doubts, any questions in this? Is everything clear? Let me know if there's any problem. Okay. All right. Okay, guys. So let's keep it till here. Let's continue tomorrow. Okay. Good night, everyone. Bye bye. Wisdom, I am not sure whether you have like what your system specification is. So it shouldn't happen. Maybe you haven't installed it correctly, or there could be some other issues. So you need to tell me your system specifications and other details. So just text me. Okay. All right, everyone. Bye bye. Good night. Good night.